Alright, so this is chapter 1 of IST 226. I'm not going to go over chapter 1 in class, so that's one of the reasons, that is the main reason why I'm making this video. However, you will be tested on it, so make sure you read the chapter in your book as well as take the quiz, so when you are tested on it, you'll know what you're doing and you won't miss those questions. Alright, in chapter 1 is pretty much basic concepts, key concepts when dealing with the internet, basic networking principles or networking concepts. So like I said, that's one reason why I'm making this video, because I don't want to bore you to death, and I probably will with this video anyway. So let's get started. Alright, so the objectives of this chapter. Alright, the chapter talks about the evolution of the internet, web standards, as well as universal design, accessibility design, some of the how to find reliable resources on the internet, some ethical use of the internet, why web browsers and servers have to work together. We'll talk a little bit about network protocols, domain names. We'll mention definitely HTML and HTML5, and the book also talks about some of the popular trends that are used on the web or in the web or on the web. Alright, so the internet standards. Alright, the internet society. I'm a member of the internet society. Basically what we do is that we address the issues pertaining to the internet. So for example, you probably have heard of net neutrality. We're basically trying to keep the internet free for everybody, so governments and they won't privatize the internet and charge us outrageous prices to use it. The Internet Engineering Task Force is basically the ones who actually do the engineering part of the internet. For example, these are the ones that actually come up with the IP addresses, as well as some of the different protocols that you'll need, that you use for the internet. ICANN. Alright, these are probably the main players when it comes to actually assigning domain names, IP addresses, and so forth. Alright, so pretty much when you go to GoDaddy.com or whatever, they get their domain names from ICANN, so they can actually sell them to everybody else. You also notice that these are the individuals who actually assign port numbers. Alright, so I'm gonna go back here. I know it's gonna do that. Alright, so the IETF are the ones that actually make make the domain or the port numbers, and ICANN are the ones who actually assign the port numbers. Okay. WC3. WC3 is the organization that actually comes up with the standard for web technologies. For example, there's the ones who came up with the standards for HTML5, JavaScript, PHP, and other web technologies or other technology you'll use for the web. Web accessibility. They also came up with accessibility initiative. You have to have, because you have to make your website accessible to devices that are used by people who are disabled individuals. There are guidelines that they have, I would say, set aside for you to use when you are designing a website to make it accessible. Also, you have to abide by Section 508, especially if you're with a government organization. This is the act that tells you that all government agencies, their websites have to be accessible. If they are not accessible, then we get in trouble. If you use universal design for your website, then you won't have the problem dealing with accessibility or making your website accessible. Universal design is basically making your website pretty much standard, so you won't have to actually make any adjustments to it when you to make any adjustments to it when dealing with other devices and adapt for any other design or whatever you may have. Internet works on a client server model, so you have the web browser that when you click on the button sends the request to the web server. The web server gets the image and brings it back to the web server. What you need to know about the web server or the web client is that it uses a web browser. Also, it is always connected to the internet. It has to be, so you can connect to the web server. It uses both the web server and the web client uses the HTTP protocol. Now, the web server, they do have software on them. One of the popular ones is Apache because it is free. The Internet Information Server, or IIS, these is with Microsoft Server, and because you have to buy Windows Server, you're going to have to pay for it. Some of the protocols. There is no single protocol that makes the internet work. It is a group of protocols or collection of protocols that you need to make or to make the internet work. Alright. One of the protocols, especially when dealing with websites, is the H or FTP. When you are finished designing your website, you'll have to be able to actually upload your files with your website files to the web server. This is how you do it. You use FTP to upload all your files to the web server. So when someone goes to your domain name, they can actually see your website. Talked about HTTP protocol a little bit. Basically, it works on the same thing. HTTP is the protocol that connects the web server or the web server to the web client. So, like I mentioned earlier, the web browser sends an HTTP request to the web server. The web server gets the image of whatever request you send it. Uses HTTP to send it back to the web client. Domain names. Alright, these domain names are basically a way to keep the internet organized. Yes, it says divide the internet into larger groups, but mainly instead of actually trying to remember the IP address of a web server, just typing in the words or google.com or so forth, make it easier for you to access that website. Now, DNS or domain name server or system allows you to basically, it takes the words domain name and converts it to the IP address. So it's so it goes to the web server as an IP address. It also does it vice versa. So you can actually type in the IP address and then it will convert it to google.com. The URL, this is basically the location on the web server where the files are stored. So if you take a look down here at the bottom, it talks about, it has the HTTP protocol that's at the beginning because it has to use that protocol to connect or to communicate with the web server. You have their actual web server name. Now, some domain names have the www on it, some do not. So that means the www just means that they're on a web server that is connected to the internet. If you do not have a www on it, more than likely that web page or website is on an internal network. Next, you have the domain name. This is the .com, .org, .whatever. So like I said, you could be using the IP address to get to this website, and you can, but it just makes it a lot more easier to just type in the name of the domain name associated with that IP address. Now, because the internet or the web server is a computer, you can use file directories just like a regular computer. So this particular link has a folder on it, and inside that folder it has the file index.html. So it opens up the folder, the chapter 1 folder, and then accesses the index.html file. Top level domain names. These are the .com, .org, and so forth. When you buy a domain name, you buy the actual name, not the actual top level. Alright. The top level is associated with the domain name. Alright, so you have the .com, .org, .net. ICANN is always coming up with brand new top level domain names. If you want to check them out, just go to the website and you can see what's out there, or even the ones that are coming out. Like I said, they're always coming out with brand names. Country codes. Pretty much these are top level domains that allows you to actually indicate where the country that the website is actually, or where it is originally indicated. So basically, if you want to know where the web browser or web server that this website is on, then you can actually use a custom country code to actually tell you that it's located in the UK, in Australia, in Japan, and so forth. Here is the exact same image we had before, just it breaks it down a little bit more using the protocols and also DNS. So you have the web browser uses TCP/IP to send the HTML request going. That's HTML. My bad. HTTP request using the domain name. Uses the domain name. It sends back the IP address from the DNS server. It goes to the server, the web server, to get the document, the file, what have you, and the web server sends it back to the web browser or to the web client using the same TCP/IP and TCP/IP and HTTP responses. Markup language. And so HTML is a markup language. It's depending on who you to ask or who you are talking to. Some people or some individuals call HTML a programming language. However, it is a markup language. It's basically symbols that you can actually put on a file and allows the browser to actually view and actually show or display the actual images or context. XHTML, basically it was HTML4 combined with XML to actually give HTML a little bit of a kick. But now, since we have HTML5, we don't need it. HTML5 is basically XHTML on steroids. You can do so much in HTML5 that allows you don't have to do any more extra coding. You don't have to use any extra types of scripting. Pretty much you all do in HTML5 makes a web designer's job so much easier. So in summary, give you an overview. I hit some of the high points of chapter 1. I didn't go over it completely. We basically talking about some of the network concepts of the internet, as well as brief overview of the internet, some of the protocols. Pretty much just like I said, I just hit some of the high points. Okay, like I mentioned, this chapter 1 will be on your test. Since because I only hit the high points in this video, make sure you read the chapter. Make sure, I can't stress that enough, make sure you read the chapter because you will be tested on it. Okay, So you also have a quiz on chapter 1, which you will be taking. So you take the quiz, read the chapter, take the quiz. On next time we'll be in class, we'll actually start with chapter 2. And chapter 2 actually introduces you to actual coding with HTML. Alright, so I'll see you guys in class. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in class.